I'm really looking forward to this important conversation that we are having today with Tisha Endsley. Tisha is a
Hi.
Hi, Tisha. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio so people know what we're diving into. But welcome,
Great.
glad you're here.
Thank you.
Tisha is a mother of an angel child and three children here on earth. She's been married to her high school sweetheart, Jacob, for 23 years. She grew up as an Army brat traveling the U.S. and currently lives in Texas. She's been in the real estate business for 19 years and just recently stepped away to pursue her own healing and helping others get through loss or trauma by creating and launching her podcast, Permission to Live. And I will say before we get started that we are having a hard conversation here. Trisha has gone through something that's just really traumatic and something that we all like. It's everybody's biggest nightmare, right? What you wish doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So, just if that's something, if you're in a tender space today, you might want to skip this podcast today. I just feel like that's important to say.
Yeah. That's good.
Tisha, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here and sharing your story and um, your process since then. It's really brave of you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to get the message out and to help others if I can and share my story. I appreciate it.
I think it's just absolutely remarkable that you have taken something so traumatic and turning it into a reason to live and a
Mhm.
message to share with others. So I would love to just open this up to you for you to just start with what you would like to share.
Yeah. Thank you. I lost my son. We lost our son December 6th of 2021. So it's been a year and I've been so kind of used to, I guess, in the past year saying last December, and I have to now say the year. So I can't believe it's been a year already, but we lost him.
Wow.
He was 23 years old, a beautiful, blue-eyed, loving, caring kid. And he unfortunately, through life, fell into addiction. And he was actually in active recovery in December. He had been in active recovery since September. And he, as a lot of stories of people who are in addiction or active recovery, he relapsed. And his drug of choice was Oxy. And he asked, that's what he thought he was getting. And unfortunately, because of the issues that we have today in the US with fentanyl, it was laced, and we have found out that it was actually 100% fentanyl.
Oh, wow.
And it was 4 times the amount of a lethal dose. So it instantly took his life. So the morning of December 6th, I received a call that every mother dreads, wishes it would never happen, and probably has nightmares about, that my son Connor had passed away.
This must be a very hard time of year for you.
It has been. Yeah, it has been. Thanksgiving was our first Thanksgiving without him.
Yeah,
It was one of his favorite holidays. He loved to eat. He loved mac and cheese. He loved all things Thanksgiving, family, um, football. That was very hard. That was very hard to have him missing from the table. Um,
sure.
Last Christmas, we were in the middle of this being so traumatic and new. And so, yes, he did not have Christmas with us last year, but this is kind of our first going into the Christmas season, without buying for kids presents, without buying for children candy for stockings, right? And putting it back to three. In fact, we had just yesterday, my husband had received money gifts from his mom for the kids, and he was opening them. And he's like, well, there's only three. And then just stopped him in his tracks, and he just started crying. He's like, wow, because his first instinct was one kid's going to be disappointed. But
Right.
then he had to realize, no, there's only three. So that's
Mm.
been hard. That's been real tough. And um, right after he passed away, or when he passed away, we were both, him and I, were kind of going through our own healing journey as far as physical healing. And um, he decided when he wanted to get sober that he also wanted to live an abundant life, not only in sobriety, but with his health and fitness. And um, we kind of dove in it together. It's always kind of been his passion. It's always been my passion. And we started healing together physically, as far as like diet and exercise and cleaning up sugar and just trying to heal from the inside. And he when he went to this amazing treatment center, he learned a lot of things that we were completely naive to in our own little world. He learned about meditation, and he learned about breath work, and he learned about healing the nervous system and healing the inside, because that's where addiction kind of starts, is trauma on the inside typically. And so he shared that with us, and that kind of launched me in my own healing journey with him. And then after he passed away, just really kind of I guess buckling down, or just really diving deeper into that, knowing what I was about to face, losing him, and the most traumatic thing that could probably ever happen to somebody, because it's so unnatural. That kind of kept me on this path of digging deeper into what this inner healing meant, and what this breath work and meditation, and what this just nervous system, all that was new to me. So I kind of dove even deeper into that after he passed away.
Isn't it remarkable that he gave you such a gift
Yeah.
before passing away, and
Yeah.
it was your ultimate gift to heal, right?
Yeah. 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 I've discovered so many things. Obviously, healing, and you're never really going to be healed from losing a child. That pain's always going to be there,
Yeah, for sure.
because it's your heart, right? It's an extension of you,
Yes.
essentially. But with this, and just diving deeper, I've just discovered so many areas in my life that I've held on to.
Mm.
Trauma, my body's held on to, loss, my body's held on to, that has come out in physical ailments or relationship, dysfunction. And yes, what a gift he's given me through this, and exposing me to this very shortly, for me to start really healing from the inside out, and then watching it overflow into my family, into my marriage. It's been, that part of this disaster has been beautiful.
I'm really looking forward to hearing about what some of these tools are. And it's just so profound that you had them so that I mean, these gifts also, like you're saying, bled over into your family, right? Like you were
Yeah.
able to show up and continue living your life for your other children.
Yeah, that was very important to me. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been through so much trauma themselves. And I remember when this happened, the first thing I thought of is, I can't subject them to any more trauma because of my own weakness or selfishness.
Yeah.
That's not fair for them. And this is already going to be tough enough, especially the ages they were, 14, 18, and 20. I mean, it's hard enough to process this type of loss in your 40s.
Yeah.
A child who's trying to discover who they even are, um, that is going to be a tough road for them. And I didn't want to contribute to that. And that's kind of why I hunkered down and started really diving into how I can be the healthiest version of myself in this loss.
And I'm curious if like this process started December 7th for you, or if you had this time for just grieving and hitting true rock bottom before you kind of clawed your way out.
Yeah, the healing started before, and so that was mostly learning about what we put into our bodies
Mm-hmm.
has a direct reflection on our mental health.
Yes.
So we started this journey, Connor and I did, of like no sugar. Well, I stopped alcohol because I was trying to help his sobriety, and I'm like, well, if I want to lose weight, drinking alcohol with all the sugars probably not it's probably going to counteract what I'm doing. So I gave that up for that reason, and then to help his sobriety and to support him. So when he came over the house, it wasn't there. We weren't
Yeah.
partaking in it. But then researching what sugar does to your body, and what how it affects your mental health, and how we're over sugared, and then going get my blood work done, and learning about my fatty liver, and learning about my borderline pre-diabetes, and how that affects you mentally. And so I was already on this eating cleaner and kind of cleaning out my body
Mm-hmm.
when all this happened. So I really think that at the beginning was really helped me wake up, get up and get out of bed. We were also in the midst of the holidays, and I knew I had to. So I think that really helped me not, I knew that I already taken alcohol out of my lifestyle. And so I knew going there, one, was not good for the sugars and my health, but two, it probably would open up a really bad door.
Yeah.
It's trauma I have learned now trauma can actually trigger maybe some borderline addiction or borderline issue, right? And so I just knew my family history that doing that would just be devastating and it probably wouldn't stop because I didn't want to be in pain and alcohol is going to, mask
Yeah.
that for a little
Doesn't
bit.
help most. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when he passed, it was of course just mass chaos in the holidays, and we had just some tremendous help and friends and family really come and support us. And then we actually went to Montana on a family trip. We had planned this before Connor passed away. Every other year, once the kids got older, we decided no presents trip, and we were planning this amazing trip to Montana. Connor was very excited. He loves the mountains. He loves
Mm.
snow. We had this snowboarding, days and this sleigh ride and this snowmobiling trip. I mean, we had it all planned out. And so when this happened, I asked the kids, I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just cancel it? And they all wanted to go. They said Connor would want us to go. And we were able to get some of his ashes and sprinkle them and bring with us. And so that was very healing. And so, I think because we had all that, I mean, we had his service and 3 days later we flew out to Montana, celebrated Christmas there. We actually had both our parents. So I had my mom and my husband had his mom, and that was very healing for us.
Mm.
And then we got back and the new year started and I had to go back to work.
Wow.
So that's when I started diving deep. And I don't think that there was ever this like spiral, hit rock bottom, and then I had to pick myself up. I think it was days. There were
Mhm.
days that there were good days, and there's days that I couldn't get out of bed, maybe once or twice. I couldn't function. But I just kept digging and I kept learning these tools. Right away, I discovered breath work. I discovered meditation right away, and that helped, I think, really regulate my nervous system and help calm me so I could function.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So simple, so easy for us to access all the time for
Yeah.
free, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, okay, so tell me about your breathwork practice. Tell me what you did initially.
So the first time I ever heard about it was Connor was in treatment and we did like a parents weekend. And so they were telling us what they're teaching our loved ones. And one of it was breath work and box breathing. And so they actually had us participate in that so we could see how our bodies felt. And they had a psychiatrist, a psychologist on there that explained the nervous system and trauma and what it does and how we need to regulate and how we operate in our true self when we're in our regulated state. And so that was all new to me and very, very profound. And it made total sense and self-reflection. I'm like, wow, I do act when I am elevated. I react, I don't respond. And so they had us do the breathwork practice. And right away, Emily, I noticed right away, I'm like, wow, I could feel my heart rate just totally calm down. And I'm usually an amped up kind of high energy person. And I was just like at rest. And I was like, that's fantastic if that works for them. Right. At that
Yeah,
point, I didn't think I needed it,
right.
but our loved ones that are trying to heal. So when Connor passed away, I had to go right back to work. And typically on my way to work, I always talk to him. He loved talking on the phone with me, or I listened to music and I would always send him songs, like encouraging songs. Connor, listen to this. Connor, you can be this, listen to this. Well, I found myself not able to, one, listen to any music. It would just devastate me. And I was in sales. And so I couldn't cry on the way to work. I had to be very poised. I was in, custom home sales. And so I had to have an appearance. And so I just started listening to podcasts. And the only thing I could think of was healing through breath work.
Mm.
It was working for Connor, it was working for these people. And so I started listening to podcasts about breathwork healing and meditation. And now what that went into is I just downloaded the simple app of meditation and I started this like introductory to meditation. And it's like 5 minutes and then 6 minutes and then 7 minutes and just doing that every morning. Then I found a beautiful person who did retreats and went on this beautiful retreat in August and really did a true hour-long activating breath work session that actually activated my nervous system on purpose to move some trauma that I didn't know have to move that energy through me. I've done that probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times since then. That's beautiful. That really helps move that trauma through my body.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really been helpful and impactful as well.
So now that you have gotten in touch with your own nervous system,
Yeah.
which in my experience is a process, it's like getting to know someone,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, And the longer I'm in touch with my nervous system, the more I'm learning the nuances and the subtleties. So I'm curious for
Mhm.
you if it's been a journey similar to that, and also what that looks like for me is like I now notice subtle shifts in my nervous system. Like I notice when I get a little bit ramped up, whereas before I would have had to be like a 30, and now I
Yeah.
can notice it maybe more at like an 8, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It has been a process. And I've had really amazing people come alongside me that I didn't really know before that are kind of understanding of this and helping me and teaching me to trust my body and to
Yeah.
listen to my body where I didn't think that was a thing before, like um yeah. And so I learning and digging deep, like, oh, why am I feeling this way? And learning how to be curious. Why am I nervous right now?
Mhm.
What's making me nervous? But like before, I'd have to be screaming for me to go, oh, I probably should go do some breath work. Or I probably need to go meditate. And now it's like, oh, my stomach hurts
Mhm.
or my heart's racing. What's happening? What am I not? What is my body trying to tell me? And the first time that happened, because I always get like through my life, I'd always get like my heart would start racing, or I'd have this intuition, or I'd have this like feeling that was just uncomfortable, and I never really explored it. I just thought, oh, I just have this uncomfortable thing. Something's happening. So I had this job offer come to me, and I was taking a walk with a friend of mine who's I've become really close with now, who understands all this. And I was telling her about it. And the Tisha in 2021 would have been like, this is an amazing opportunity. This is exactly what I want to do. It was like coaching and mentorship. And I was going along with this offer and we had this orientation and I'm telling my friend this. And I said, and I just started like my heart was racing. I was sweating during the orientation. It wasn't even hot. I was like, I don't know why. I don't know if I'm going through menopause. And she's like, Tisha, and I was like, I don't know if I should take this job. And she goes, you already know. Your body was saying, heck no, hell no, don't take this. And I was like, oh, yeah. That was the first time the anxiousness and the sweating was like, oh, my body was saying, this is not right. We are not where we're supposed to be. And this is not for you. And that was the first time I recognized that. And that was pretty cool. But that was I started kind of diving into this in January, February. And that was before I realized that was like in June.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have these, 40 some years of patterns of
Hmm.
mind over matter and ignoring the body and trying to listen to our minds. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole shift.
Yeah. And I think even too, my husband's been in this doing this practice as well and learning about it himself and the breath work and meditation. And I think our adult children who's so used to us being very passionate, which we're still passionate in more of a responsive way and not a reactive way. I think they're catching on because, they as young adults do and teenagers do, they test boundaries. And when they don't get the reaction that they're used to, they kind of look
Yes.
ask questions or try to push even further that's been pretty cool to see to try to help them unlearn the unhealthy ways that we were reacting.
Amazing. Such an
Yeah.
amazing model. What
Yeah.
was their healing process like? Were they looking to you for guidance, or did they have their own kind of
Yeah, each one is
different?
different.
Mhm.
The younger one being 14, it's still very impressionable, more child, hasn't really, 15, 16, they start developing kind of an adult. And so he's listened and he's asked questions and he was the first one. I'm having my breathwork instructor come to a private session for our family on December 20th. And he was the first one that was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's going to be great. That's exciting. And tell me more about the meditation. And, if you want me to meditate with you, mommy, I will. And he's been very curious. The other two, they're, 18 and 20. They're watching, they
Mhm.
see and they're very respectful. And I think that they are probably very glad, I'm sure as a 20-year-old male, he's probably worried about his mom, worried about his mom. And um, he's very supportive. For my birthday, he bought me a sound bowl. So not knowing anything about like, meditation or this inner healing, him and his sweet girlfriend bought me a sound bowl and some like meditation beads. And he was
Mm.
like, I really don't know what to do, but they said it's cool. And I love it.
Yeah, he's
So
paying attention.
yeah, he is. He's
Mhm.
paying attention. Yeah, he's
Mhm.
paying attention. Yeah.
Wow. Um, a thought had just occurred to me, but then I
Yeah,
lost it.
that's okay.
I guess I want to go into, trauma and healing are terms that are much more in the vernacular these days, right? I feel like
Hmm.
it's a lot of work. I've been doing my own work, even though I can't point to like trauma like you experienced. I
Yeah.
can't point necessarily to one traumatic event, but I have had a healing process that's been really important to my development, right? Because
Hmm.
there are um, smaller things that can happen in life
Yeah.
we can interpret as traumatic, and it's more how we respond to it than actually the event itself, in what I've
Right.
learned, right? Um, so I think as people are hearing about all this healing and trauma, now obviously you've gone through something that's very clearly traumatic. Um, what is your, I guess, do you have advice for people? Like, do you feel like the work that you're doing is necessary work for everybody, regardless of what they've been through in life?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talk about in my podcast is no matter how big or small, a lot of this trauma that I'm actually getting out of my body and moving that energy out is stuff that happened a long time ago that I didn't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Oh, that just happened. And, but looking back, going back to that inner child in that moment, I'm like, wow, that was pretty scary. And I held on to that and wasn't talked about. And I changed. It changed me, right? One of the biggest things that is just profound to me, and Emily, I haven't really like found that I know there's science out there and I'm going to find it. I'm on a mission, but something happened to me, when I went back, pretty traumatic. I was like 8, and my mother had a mental breakdown. She had my dad was in the military. He was gone, and she just had this episode. And it was me, and I had 3 siblings. My brother was older and he was pacing. The ambulance had to come get her out of our house and remove her. No family was around, and I was comforting my younger brother and my younger sister. And I
Oh,
remember being terrified because nobody was comforting me. I was 8. My dad didn't come home from the field. No one talked about it. No one made me feel safe. And I was so worried about my mom. I was very close to my mother, and she just had, just had a breakdown, and it was scary. And I remember at that moment in my life, when I look back on like my weight, something changed in me. When I was born a teeny little tiny thing. I'm 5'2". My mom had to like force me to eat. The doctor was like, she's too little. Like, I was just little, and something changed. And all of a sudden I was the chubby girl, and I had this metabolism that my brothers and sisters didn't have. Like they had this like bird metabolisms. And I always used to think, am I different? Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I different? And then I became an athlete and I used it and I became, fit. But that I always struggled with that. When I went back to that point through this massage that I got, this healing massage, and this inner child came to me, and I learned to go back to her and comfort her and heal that, 60 pounds just dropped off me. Yes, I
mhm.
was not, drinking and not eating,
Yeah.
but I wasn't out there running marathons, and I wasn't out there crossfitting, and it just fell off me.
Mm.
And I know that had to do something with releasing that trauma. Something
Yeah.
changed in me. And so it wasn't anything big. It wasn't, my parents, nothing, a huge trauma, but trauma can be anything. It can be um, anything scary. And like you said, it's what happens around it. If it wasn't talked about, if I didn't feel safe, if I didn't feel, I felt like I had to be the caretaker, whatever it was. Um, that's the really beautiful thing through the loss of Connor that I've been able to find is just healing things that have been stuck in my body that I
Mm.
didn't think was a big deal. Um, and healing from that and being able to talk about it and be able to go back to that little girl and comfort her and show her grace. And yeah, so I believe everybody, I mean, nobody has a perfect life. This world is full of good things, beautiful things, but bad things, things that we all do the best we can. And I know my parents, they're beautiful. They did the best they can with what they know. I did the best I can. And I know for certain, I'm sure my children have had some traumatic experiences in their childhood um, because I'm not a perfect person.
Yeah.
And so anybody I think can benefit. And when we grow up, we're put in a box. The society tells us you have to grow up and go to work, pay bills and die, go to work, pay bills and die. And that's not what we were created. We were created to play, and we were created to share joy, and no one plays anymore. Nobody laughs. Adults are so serious. And that's not living. That's not what we're created to do. We're created to run and play and dance. And somewhere along the line, we lose that. And so for someone to go back and find where they lost that and heal that,
Yeah.
I feel is just so important.
Do you feel joy these days?
I do. I
Wow.
do. I learned duality. I learned at this retreat. I heard about the word. Someone said it and I was like, what is that? I'm always asking questions. I'm like, excuse me, you just said something. I have no idea what you just said. And they explained to me what duality meant. And with that, I learned that I'm not going to suffer forever. I'll always feel pain for Connor. He's, especially being my first boy. I had him at 17. We grew up together. I'll never not feel pain for not having him here in this world. But however, we have the capacity to hold pain and joy in the same space. It's not one or the other. We're taught to run away from pain, push it away. If someone's having a bad day, you want to make them happy, right? Because you don't want them to feel pain. I've learned that we have both and we're capable of both. And I can feel pain of not having him here with me, and joy that I'm living and I have beautiful kids and it's sunny outside and I can go play and I can go in my pool or I can, dance. And so for a few months, well, probably the first half of the year, I thought I can't feel joy because
Yeah.
that means I'm not sad.
Yeah.
So in August, when I went to that beautiful retreat and I learned that I can hold both was a pivotal, it made me feel that I'm going to make it and I'm going to live. I'm going to live until I'm not, until it's my time to go. And there's no guilt in that because I can hold both of those feelings in the same heart. And that's what I do.
I love that. Do you remember the first time you felt joy after Connor's passing,
Um, Let me think about that. Yeah, I can
or allowed yourself to feel joy?
feel without the guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It probably was in Colorado in the mountains. I love nature. I feel Connor in nature. He was born in Colorado. He was our Colorado baby, and he was always drawn to go back, always loved the snow, always just a rustic, what you would picture a Colorado boy looking like, young man looking like. And we were hiking, and it was our first day. This is before I learned about duality. We were hiking the first day up a black diamond mountain, pushing ourselves. And I picked up a rock and I just felt him in this nature and I felt him all around me. And I was in these beautiful mountains of Colorado and the weather was beautiful. And I felt him and I just felt him smiling right beside me because I know he would be like grinned up, loving where we're at. And I just felt so much joy and I didn't feel sad right after. I kept that joy like the whole night. And it was actually the night we went to our first breathwork session of releasing some trauma. And I ended that breathwork session laughing
Wow.
because I just felt this bubbling of joy. Yeah.
You are so beautiful. I wish everybody could see this video because they can hear it in your voice, but you just radiate this it's love, but it's just so much light. You radiate so much light.
Connor
And
was
thank
light.
God for your work and for like
Yeah.
living, like wanting to bring him into everything that you're doing and for sharing that light because not everybody takes that path after such
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah. And when he got out of treatment, he went to this beautiful weekend retreat in the treatment center and really got to shed all his stuff off. And he at that point reached out to he was a believer and reached out to his God and just gave it all up. And he said he's never felt peace in his life before like he did that weekend. And then he told us that, that he really felt in his heart that he was here to heal people and to be a healer. And so when he passed away, I was like, what was that about? Right. But I feel like now I'm his vessel to heal and it will be through him, through his spirit and through his life and love and light that it wasn't in vain. He is going to
No.
help heal through me and I will be that for him.
Like stunning. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Really remarkable. Congratulations. I don't know if that's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
kudos to you. Um, I know that this conversation, unfortunately, is happening all over this country.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
And I'm curious now that you're on this side of it, like what you would say to other parents, maybe both those who are struggling and have kids who are struggling with addiction and those who aren't, and so maybe
Hmm.
aren't having important
Sure.
conversations.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is very important to me. And I have, I don't want to live in regrets of things I could have done or should have
Of
done. I've
course.
learned so much about this fentanyl crisis, and it's almost like ignorance is bliss. I think if I knew now what I knew when Connor was in active addiction, I probably would have not ever slept.
Mm.
Um, it's lethal, it's deadly, and there are children who are experimenting like children do. Hey, this we're at a party and a Percocet's here or a Xanax is here, and like children do, they're curious and probably, and if you had a room of 100 people, adults, 85 of them or 90 would say, "Oh yeah, in high school I experimented."
Yep.
Um, Unfortunately, it is being cut and pressed with fentanyl, and it is killing everybody. It's killing all these young people. And so, unfortunately, even those who are not struggling with addiction and are just being children and experimenting are dying.
Mm.
Um, to that, I would speak to parents of just talk to your children about it. Tell them the dangers of it. Tell them it is not fair. It's not fair. When we were in the 90s in high school, it was safe. It was safe to experiment.
Yep.
It wasn't what your parents desired and put you in bad situations and
Yep.
illegal, but it wasn't going to experiment with a pill was not going to risk taking your life.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's not fair and it's not safe to experiment. And just share the stories. Go on YouTube and look at the fentanyl crisis, and they will have just pictures and pictures and pictures. 100,000 people last year, young, it was at 14 to like 30 lives are lost. It's
Wow.
300 a day lives being lost to fentanyl right now. 300 a
Wow.
day. It's incredible. And so I think just
Incredible.
talking to them and empathizing with them. Yeah, I get it. You want to experiment. You want to see what's out there, but here, look at all these lives. It's not, you can't. And I know it's not fair and I know it's not safe and or not, fair, but this is the world we live in today. It's not 1990. It's not 2000. Um, it's, it's, it's a crisis right now. It really is. And there was even a story where we live in Texas. And so we're by the border. And so we hear a lot of like border stuff. And there was this family, and they lived down about an hour from the border. And her son went over to Mexico with friends and went to a pharmacy. I've been to Mexico and I've been to the pharmacy, and we have bought stuff that we can't get. We have to get a prescription. I get it, right? Went to a pharmacy to get Percocet. The bottle said Percocet. He took a Percocet, and his mom found him in his room dead. They took the bottle of Percocet from the pharmacy in Mexico and tested it. It was 100% pure fentanyl. So it has infiltrated the pharmacies in Mexico. Talk to your kids when they go on spring break to Mexico. Tell them when they go for their senior trip. It is out of control. You can't do that anymore. We used to be able to do that, 2 years ago when you go to Mexico, um, talk to them about that, learn about that. It's scary. It's very scary. To the moms or the families that have a child in addiction, the one thing that I wish I maybe could have offered Connor, I don't know that I would have changed anything, but when you have a child in addiction, there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of fear of what it looks like outside that. And so I would say a conversation that I might wish I might have had with Connor is, Connor, I'm not saying that I think you're an addict. I'm not saying that I know for sure that you have an addiction problem, because they're going to lie to you. You're going to ask and they're going to say no. I fear that you may. And if you ever get to the point where you are and you're ready to give it up, this is what I have planned. This is what I want to offer you. And for the families, go research the treatment centers. Find 3 treatment centers you would send them to. Find out the cost, find out your insurance information, find out where you would send them to right away, and tell them, I've researched these 3 treatment centers. And then after those 45 days, I would love to send you to a sober living facility, whatever it is. Have a plan laid out for them, right? We plan for our funerals, we plan for college, plan that for them. That way they know if they came to you or if they're done and they want to lay it down, they know what it looks like. It's not this big unknown. Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? They can research it. They can look, they can Google it on their phone. Say, this is what I would like to do. So when you're ready, come to me. And this is the plan I have for you. Almost like this is the easy button. I'm done button. They know what it looks like. Don't accuse them because they're going to get defensive. As parents, if they're in addiction, but if you ask them or tell them, that's not going to be received. But come from a place of love. I love you. And when you're ready, if there is an issue and you're ready to lay it down, I want to offer this to you. I want to help you. And this is what I have to give you. I think that would be the number one thing that I would go back and tell myself about 3 years ago.
Wow, that's gold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that I know that my audience loves to know about are great wellness tips and tricks, and you've already shared several, but I would love to know from you, and I have another question around health and wellness after this too, but what's your number one health tip, well, let's just call it, that you would recommend everybody do?
Give up sugar. Sugar is the legalist worst drug, I think, in America. I believe they are poisoning us by accepting it. It is awful. It does something to your brain, and it is causing so many diseases right now. I mean, people are not living long because they are getting pre-diabetic. I think there was a statistic, and I don't know the exact number, but I think by like 2030, 80% of Americans are going to be type 2 diabetic. It's hard. It's an addiction. I know when I have a little bit, I start craving it again. Just lay it down. Just try your hardest to lay it down. There's alternatives out there. There's natural sweeteners out there you can do that are not artificial, but natural. Don't do artificial, please. I would say that would help you with a lot of things in your body, your joints, your face, your energy. That's would be my number one thing.
That's what I was going to ask next. I mean, I lead like sugar detoxes because it is so
Yeah. Oh, do
important.
you?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
But I'm curious what you notice. It ranges for people so much. You just named
Yeah.
some of the big ones, but for you personally, what did you notice?
I thought I was ADHD.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
No, I was just amped up on sugar and it was messing with my brain. So when I am clean of sugar and I am detoxed from sugar, I am so clear headed. I'm not foggy and I'm not, I can focus, I can focus. I thought it was ADHD and it was, I'm an active person, I like to be active, but the biggest thing is memory fog. And that's like inside me. That's the first thing I notice. The first thing I notice on the outside is my puffiness. I mean,
Yes.
I'm actually kind of puffy right now because I had, I had some sugar. My mom has been baking and anyway, so the first thing I
Tis the
noticed,
season.
I wake up and I'm like, I look like I'm hungover and I had
Yeah.
a Bender last night and all I did was have 2 cookies. So physically it's my face right away, but internally 100% it's my brain fog.
And another big one that I think people don't notice because you don't really realize your immune system when it's working well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? We only notice it when we're getting sick all the time, but gosh, it's
Yeah.
like the number one immune zapper.
Oh, as far as getting sick?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't been sick. With grieving your son, that can take a toll on your immune
Mm.
system. The depth of I mean, because there's some really bad days. I know that we talked, but there's some dark days, and there's no colds, no flu, no COVID. I haven't been sick. No runny nose, no no cough, and that's totally has to be from the sugar, refined carbs.
I kind of want to go back to that conversation that we did have a little bit earlier about those bad days. And you said that what kind of kept you going was that like you weren't drinking and you knew that you weren't going to go back there because that wasn't going to be helping your
Mm-hmm.
grieving process. And I know when I'm having bad days, that's when I go to the things that are my comfort, which aren't necessarily good for me, but that's where I
Yeah.
will be like in the pantry looking for sugar, thinking about a
Mm-hmm.
drink. So did you have a lot of like, did you have to make rules for yourself, or how did you just kind of stay on a higher path around that?
I think learning the different tools. They're the really dark days. Like in the winter time, early on when it was winter, I discovered cold plunging, and so if I woke up just really, really dark, I knew that I had to do some good breath work sessions, maybe meditate 10 minutes and then go cold plunge. Cold plunging, I think, really saved me last winter. It really helped me. And, I know there's science behind, I've read a little bit about it, but all I know is when I was doing it, it would help me sleep and it would help me not go raid the pantry and not go to the liquor store and buy my bottles of wine and start drinking.
Yeah.
It helped calm me, and I regulated my nervous system. So I wasn't reacting. I was responding to my sadness and not reacting to my sadness.
Hmm. Yeah. You were in a space of recognizing it and knowing you needed to care for it rather than run from it.
Yeah, and allowing myself to feel this.
Mm.
If I'm having a bad day, of course I'm having a bad day. It's
Yes.
okay. If I'm crying for 4 hours, of course I'm crying for 4 hours. If I'm, my husband and I are doing counseling together through all this, and we walked in and we like, yeah, well, we kind of got in an argument. She's like, of course you got in an argument. Like, you're about to celebrate the 1 year, death of your son. Allowing to that to be okay. I'm gonna cry for 2 hours, and that's okay. I'm not gonna, I don't hardly wear makeup anymore because I cry all the time, and being okay with it, not trying to
Mm.
suppress it, because of course I'm gonna cry. Of course I'm gonna feel emotion. I miss my kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Um, Now that you have implemented all of the self-care into your life, I am guessing that you have a pretty standout morning routine just to help you get out the door and feel good. So
Hmm.
will you tell us a little bit about if you do and if it's
Yeah, I do.
important and
Yeah.
what it looks
Yeah. Oh,
like?
it's always my mornings. I've always been a morning person. Mornings have always been pretty important to me. When the kids are younger, it was very important for me. I didn't understand why. Now I know about the nervous system, and this practice. I always knew that I had to get up before them and have my coffee and do my reading, and journaling before they even got up. And I was a better mom, or go run, do my running before. It made me a better mom. And now I know why. And so getting up before everybody is very important to me. It gives me my alone time that I need. It gives me the Tisha time. Depending on the day, depending on the season, will cold plunge, meditate, have quiet time, have my cup of coffee. It's almost a ritual, my cup of coffee. It's not about the caffeine because it really doesn't, kind of wakes me up, and not really. I mean, I can drink a cup of coffee and go right back to bed, honestly,
Wow.
honestly. But the ritual of something warm and just self-love
Mhm.
does something for me. So I always make sure that I get up and I have my quiet time and I reflect. And lately, it's been very important to me to have gratitude, naming the 3 things that I'm grateful for at that moment and why I'm grateful for them, or what impact they've had on me for whatever I'm grateful for. That's very, very important to me. And then that's like a no negotiation. I have to do that. Because there is a lot of beautiful things that I have that I'm very fortunate to have. I have a beautiful family and a husband, and a roof over my head, and food in my pantry, and a mother here that loves me, and a father. I mean, so that's very important to me. But to get up, before I have to get ready every morning without negotiation, if I have to be in the shower to start getting ready at 8:30, I always give myself an hour and a half of just me time. And sometimes it's just staring at the fire with my warm cup of coffee and breathing. Sometimes it's a cold plunge. Sometimes it's, stretching. Sometimes it's walking, it's running. But always is at least 30 to 45 minutes of giving myself self-love and naming what I'm grateful for at that moment.
Mm. Love it. Is there anything else that you want to share that I haven't known to ask you?
Um, no, I think you've asked me. I think that the biggest thing is get to know yourself, get to know who you are, and find out who that inner child was. Find out who you were. Ask family members if you're not sure. The world tells you all these bad things. If you're a big, bold, beautiful person, you're told you're bossy and you're too much. And go back to who you were at 3 and 4, and ask for those attributes. Right? Who was I? What was my personality like? That's who you are, and that's who you're created to be. And find that person again, and play and live and laugh.
Laugh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, Tisha, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram, and that's my Instagram tag is Tisha Endsley. So it's TishaEndsley. And then I have a Facebook group, Permission to Live Facebook group, if you want to join that as well. And then my podcast, of course, will be launching in January, and that is Permission to Live with Tisha Endsley.
I can't wait for that. And I
Yeah,
will link all of those in the show notes so people can find you with ease. Thank you
great.
so much for taking time with us today and having this really hard, meaningful, inspiring conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. And thank you for having me and doing what you're doing. I think it's wellness and health is so important and so overlooked in the US. And I think that everyone needs to dive deeper into that to feel whole.